Hey everyone, Dr. Dane Happany here, Doctor of Physical Therapy, Orthopedic Specialist, and CrossFit Level 1 trainer at Healing Motion Physical Therapy. And I'm going to take you through our technique tips for any flexion extension based exercise routine, whether you're doing CrossFit or any kind of just performance training, HIIT training, boot camp training, whatever it may be, when you're doing a strength and conditioning workout that involves a lot of flexing and extending. And really the biggest fault, it's two of them, is one, that you're either flexing your spine too much when you shouldn't or not controlling it well enough, or two, that you're overarching your spine when you either shouldn't or can control it better. The biggest thing with this is you really want to, with these movements, to try to have your mechanics down or your technique, and you want to have consistency down, which means you can replicate it back and forth. Once you get those two things down, mechanics and consistency, then you can ramp up the intensity. And so I'm going to show you the two common faults with a workout like this. So this was a workout we did at my gym this week, and it's a METCON, metabolic conditioning. It's an AMRAP for 20 minutes, meaning as many rounds as possible for 20 minutes, which makes it a time-based exercise. And what's cool, when you break down movements, we can have metabolic conditioning, where you're conditioning cardiovascular. You can have strength movements, and then you can have more bodyweight gymnastics style movements. And this was a well-designed routine because it integrated all three of those in the form of metabolic conditioning, in the aspect that you're doing as many rounds as possible, so as fast as you can with that intensity, making sure you're hitting that mechanics and that consistency. And the hard part is that just to try not to let that break down over time. With that, every single movement on here is flexing and then extending. And so it really strengthens and improves your endurance. But it also does, if you don't nail that consistency in those mechanics, does have you at risk for developing an injury. If you do have an injury with it, usually you're going to recover just fine. It's going to force you to improve your mechanics, your technique, your form better, and then you're going to be stronger for it. So we always say the worst thing you could do is not do functional movements, and then the second worst thing is to do functional movements but with poor technique. And then what we're looking for is functional movements with proper technique at a high intensity with a lot of variability. So with that, I'm going to break these motions down. The two things that you need to be able to own on this is a hip hinge when you want to hip hinge, so you're flexing at the hips but neutral spine. And then when you're trying to extend, like with our tuck-ups, when you're trying to extend, that you have the ab strength to keep your back flat on the ground and not let it arch in that circumstance. So we're gonna kind of break through the motions. Some of them you wanna flex, some of them you do wanna extend, some of them you're looking for neutral. So the first thing is the rows. So the rows on the ergometer. So our step process on that is that first you wanna drive with the legs, then you wanna extend at the hips, and then you take advantage of that momentum and you row, and then you return it all the way through, okay? So there's no way you're going to be able to actually successfully hip hinge through here. And in fact, if you did, it is going to take away some of your power that your low back can give you. So we do end up flexing here, but the idea would be that you come neutral, and it's that last bend of the legs where you flex a little bit. And then when you extend, that you drive with the legs, you're already back to neutral. This drive is all from the hips, not arching the back. And then you finish through there. So you're gonna have a little flexion, little extension, but the more that you can kind of control and not just absolutely be here and there's just a little bit there, and then as you extend, that it's mostly from the hips and you're not just overarching through there, the better. So that's what you wanna be looking with the row. You're not gonna maintain a neutral spine throughout that. You're gonna flex a little bit from there. You might extend a little bit on the pole, but the idea would be to have most of it coming from the hips, okay? The more that you improve your hip hinge and then also your core strength with like a hollow body or dead bug, the better. Then kettlebell swings. This one we are trying to stay neutral. If you just flexed a ton on the row and then you flex a ton here, you are going to get a stronger back, but you're at more risk potentially for some injuries. So we want to stay neutral with this. So with the kettlebell swing, as we go into our setup, we want to address it and be nice and neutral as opposed to rounded, okay? And then we're driving up. And so what I'm looking for is just as I drop that I'm making sure that I stay neutral throughout as opposed to flexing as I come down here, which will try to happen as I have fatigue. So that is where you really want to refine your hip hinge pattern and your deadlift strength to then apply to the intensity and the speed of a kettlebell swing, okay? Then we go to our up downs. So the up downs, similarly to the row, you're gonna flex a bit at the end range. I have a little bit of, I can improve my hamstring and also sciatic nerve flexibility here. And so I'm working on that with my strength with my deads, and then also this is an exercise. So with the up downs, I'm dropping down with that wide stance. I'm gonna flex a little bit, come down. The key is that when I drop back to here, that I have a strong enough core that I don't let this big old arch happen. And also that I'm not sandbagging and going up here. So I wanna drop back, I have that strong core, and then back up, and then I'm up. And I'm back down, I do flex a little bit, but then I don't let my back overarch, back up, real speed. Oh, almost went burpee there. There we go. Back to the tuck ups. So again, you'll flex a little bit, but then from there, the goal is not to then hinge into that extension. That's similar to the row that we'll flex a little bit. When we come out, we want it to come from the hips, not overextend through the lumbar spine. The more micro movements you allow through that, the less you're having your core control your low back, and you're just not quite getting as much bang for your buck from strength. And then you're also just getting extra motion through your spine. It's okay to do, but when you repetition it with time, speed, and load, it can lead to some pain that then hopefully you'll learn from and recover from. So then the med ball slam, back to, I wrote MC on there. It's a strength movement because you're using the medicine ball. So then this one, the kettlebell swing is more of a deadlift. This one's more of a squat, okay? And I don't have a true slam ball here, so I'm not gonna slam it. But the goal is that we come up and then we slam and we drop into that squat, back up, slam, drop into that squat. What we're looking for at the base of the squat is that we're pretty neutral. As you get tired, the reality is you're gonna flex a little bit, but we want mostly neutral. Then as we go overhead, the key is that we drive through our legs and we avoid this overextension. So we're staying right there and then we're slamming it down, back up. And so almost exact same thing we see with our row and our up downs. Although ideally we'd want to stay closer to neutral like with a kettlebell swing, that we want to try to be neutral at the bottom. Little flexion might be likely and okay, but then we want to avoid that overextension arch and go straight up, okay? So that's the med ball slams. And so you can see here, that's, every single exercise, all four of those, we could be over flexing a bit and then overextending a little bit. The better we get, the stronger we get, less risk for pain we have. Then lastly, the tuck up. So the tuck up, all those motions, mostly your hip hinge strength and your deadlift strength, and then applying it to that will help. And then this hollow body strength will apply as well. And so this hollow body strength here is where we drop on down. Where I like to start this is at least owning a dead bug. And so I'm actually gonna swing this way. So with the dead bug, you kind of tuck that pelvis a little bit, but not all the way like with a hollow body, so a little bit flattened, and then you should be able to own this strength, okay? Once you own this strength, then we want to tuck under all the way, and there's a couple ways we could work into our progression. We could go there, and then there, and a little lift for my hollow body, and notice I'm not arching as I'm there, but I'm tucking it under. The other way to start that hollow body is just that you go here, tuck under end range, legs up a little bit, core up a little bit, and I'm owning that hollow body hold, okay? Why that becomes important is on my tuck ups, I want to be able to stay rounded there as opposed to extended the whole time. If I say extended the whole time, I'm going to be, again, just kind of over compressing my low back more than I need to and relying on my hip flexors more than my abs for strength.
So here's what a tuck up would look like. Up, and on the way back down, into my hollow body, back up, boom. And there's my tuck up. As I fatigue, as I go down, what ends up happening is I arch as opposed to staying in that hollow body. So there's the tuck ups. So on the tuck ups, same thing. In this case, what'll happen is you'll flex on the way up and then you're just overextending on the way down and not staying as flexed. You're not working your abs as much. And then you're also just allowing more movement through your low back into that arch. And again, that can get you. So you can appreciate if you work 2, 3, 4 rounds through on this AMRAP, if you work 5 rounds through, you're a beast. Then if you have those little micro motions, they just add up over time. And then if you do this with similar, workouts, it can just add up over time. So what's cool is as you refine your technique, your mechanics, and your consistency, you're going to get stronger quicker, and then you can ramp up your intensity and it really snowballs, get stronger even quicker. Versus if that mechanics and consistency is off, you're doing the exercise, you're still getting a good workout. Functional movement with not the best technique is better than no functional movement at all. You're still fighting heart disease, all that good stuff, but you're just more at risk for pain, which will then set you back, and you're just not getting as much bang for your buck during the exercise as far as strengthening. So I hope that's helpful. Remember to improve your mechanics and your consistency with movement, and then ramp up your intensity. And then specifically to flexion and extension base, really own that hip hinge and that deadlift pattern, staying neutral through there. And then also really own that hollow body strength, not letting the back arch when you don't want it to. So I hope that's some helpful technique tips for some flexion extension based exercise. Go out there, kill it, get stronger. Let's all get stronger together.